Chapter 45. The Politer Knight, who had served as a guide on the journey, had given Kishir the special magic stone that indicated he could handle all the horses. When their lord, whom they should protect, decided to lead in the most dangerous situation, the knights should have naturally tried to dissuade him, but they remained relatively calm. Either read an absolute trust and belief in Kishir from them. We are setting off. Leaving General Gino behind, they departed from the Southern Army base. The mood was extremely heavy and solemn due to their sudden departure under unfavorable circumstances. 11 misty wind horses ran unimpeded across the fields blanketed by the darkness of night. These horses faced no difficulty seeing in the dark, easily avoiding any obstacles in their path. The bodies of the horses, glowing as if sprinkled with powdered pearls, were the only source of light in the place. Yudhir gripped the reins more tightly, enduring the chilling and hair-raising sensation. No matter how convenient and fast a mode of transportation, an entity not born from nature was diametrically opposed to it. Kishir rode his horse in a completely different manner than when he had arrived. Thanks to the incredibly fast pace, harsh even by the time day broke, they had already traveled far beyond the mountain range. Yudhir, we need to talk. Gakane had dismounted the horse to rest, approached Yudhir, and spoke in a lowered voice. What exactly happened yesterday? You took down those guys with the commander, so you must know something more. I'm not really sure. In truth, Yudhir had taken them down alone, but he didn't bother correcting Gakane. There was no benefit in flaunting his abilities. I was about to leave the box when they showed up. I just took them down to defend myself. How could so many of them have been here in advance? They figured out that we had recovered the redstone so quickly. Khana warned, "Come over here." Just then, Kishir called Khana. Everyone's gaze instantly focused on Khana. Surprised Khana, who was opening a water bottle, turned her head. Yes? Can you read these items while you rest? Kishir took out several items from his pocket. A torn glove, a broken dagger handle, and a shattered piece of dice. Yudhir recognized them as belongings of the dead intruders. It seemed he had taken them when he briefly entered the mansion before their departure. Of course, I will give it a try. Khana's expression turned serious. She had been unable to shake off her worry, believing that she had been of no help in this mission. She took a deep breath at the opportunity that had come once again. First, Khana held the glove. As she closed her eyes and focused, a faint energy rippled within her palm. I can only read personal information about the owner. This is the toughest material the owner possessed. So, he often wore this glove during battles, and he also used it when shaking hands with someone. It seemed like a very strong memory. He placed a large bag of money on top of the glove. After counting the money, he removed the glove and marked the count with a finger. After saying this, Khana opened her eyes. She had made a lot of progress over the months, training and using her ability countless times. Before she joined the cavalry, there were many things she couldn't read, and most of the information she could decipher amounted to fragments of words. But now she knew she could always decipher something. The information she could read had become much more detailed. Mostly, it consisted of the most potent memories related to the object. The one who gave the money is likely connected to the one I'm seeking. Kishir nodded and handed her the next object. It was a broken dagger handle. Khana gripped it and focused once again. Fear. I can read the immense fear and regret the last person who held this felt. and resentment towards someone, the person who commissioned them, a stranger they had never met, a noble from the empire. A noble from the empire? Gakane, who had been silently listening, asked in surprise. Kana opened her eyes. Her blue irises were filled with a serious look. It's a word the person holding the dagger thought strongly of. They seemed to have speculated among themselves that the identity of the person behind the commission might be a noble from the empire. The atmosphere turned cold in an instant at Kana's words. The one to break it was Kishir, who still bore a look of interest. Well, considering what they have done, it's not an impossibility. But why would a noble from our nation dare to act against our commander, a member of the imperial family? Isn't the commander's retrieval of the red stone for the peace of this nation? Why on earth would... As Gakane mumbled in confusion, Kishir responded with a slightly deeper smile instead of an answer. Nobles have their own ways, Gakane Bulanwald. If everyone had the same loyalty as you, we would be quite comfortable by now. It was a loaded statement. Gakane seemed taken aback, as if he'd said something inappropriate, but Yudhir recalled memories from the past. In his previous life, Yudhir had gained some insight into the power structure of the empire by attending many parties and gatherings at the emperor's command. The people believed that the emperor held the greatest power in the world and that those serving him were filled with genuine loyalty. But that wasn't the reality. The four duke families, long standing throughout the empire's history, were as arrogant as if the nation had four additional kings. Remembering the audacious faces of those even the imperial family had to tread lightly around, Yudhir could understand what Kishir meant. Indeed, nobles had their own ways. Now, the last object. Kana held the last object, a broken dice, in her hand. From her concentrated face, with closed eyes, a deep focus unlike anything seen before emanated. The owner of this object was addicted to gambling. They needed a lot of money. They had awakened their power, but seemed dissatisfied with their unchanged life. Besides fear and regret, similar to the previous objects I read. Kana opened her eyes and looked at the commander's face. He was nodding with a satisfied look. Good, thanks to you, we have obtained some interesting information. But can you read the stone inside the box? Kana, who had been smiling brightly at having her ability acknowledged, became serious again. I can read only the history of the box. I'm sorry. What a pity for such a good ability. Kishir expressed his regret sincerely. Yudhir agreed as well. How wonderful it would be if Kana's ability had advanced enough to read stones without directly contacting them. Judging by the current rate of progress, it wouldn't take long. However, if things went as if they did in the past, Kishir would head to the palace with the red stone as soon as he arrived in the capital. By then, even if Kana's ability had developed, the stone would have already been the world spear. If only I could prevent or delay that. Previously, he had thought that the ignorant mages of the Pearl Tower had recklessly chipped away the power of the red stone and damaged the original. But having participated in this mission and realizing the extraordinary power within the red stone, his thoughts had changed. Several ways to protect the red stone whirled confusingly in Yudhir's mind and then disappeared. The easiest, of course, was to make Kishir himself realize the value of the stone. Then he could persuade the emperor not to send the stone to the Pearl Tower. Yudhir's gaze stealthily turned towards Kishir. At the same time, in the imperial palace in the northern part of the Or Empire's capital, a man with grizzled hair and a young boy were sitting across from each other, setting up several intricately shaped pieces for a strategic game. At a glance, it seemed like an old man playing with his young grandson, but a closer look revealed that their relationship was not so close. The old man's eyes were well collected, cruel, and cunning, and the boy sitting in front of him had a fierce beauty that did not match his young age. The Duke of Paleta seems to have succeeded in his retrieval. He said he would be back soon. The old man muttered as he moved a piece on the board. His voice was nonchalant. Is that so? Were you already aware? I had to know naturally when the excitement in the Sun Palace reached the Bride Palace. The Bride Palace was a palace built for the Crown Prince, and the boy with the golden hair and red eye characteristic of the Or Empire's imperial family was none other than Prince Christian Lahore, who was to be the next emperor. Did you also hear about the incident of those who coveted it appearing in the middle? The old man added another piece to his offense. Despite the aggressive move, the crown prince was not flustered. He skillfully moved his piece to dodge and open his mouth. Yes, I heard about that too. They say the subordinates of the Duke of Paleta resolved it adeptly. They say the monsters came from somewhere. Unfortunately, it seems that has not been resolved. Indeed, quite a pity. They could have been on good terms with us. The words carried a ruthless intent, but the Crown Prince's expression was utterly calm. The Duke of Paleta is not the fool others make him out to be. He's cunningly managed to establish that organization. He must never be underestimated. I thought he was a man too busy looking after himself to hide such a flaw. It turns out those who scored this time were not Paleta knights but members of the strange group the Duke established. At that, the Crown Prince stopped moving his piece for the first time and lifted his head. Was its name the cavalry?